My name is Ravel Gautier, and I'm doing a science fair project for my school on why sea otters haven't been reintroduced on the Mendocino coast. Some people know that sea otters were once thriving on the Mendocino coast, but then were wiped out in a fur trade. The fur trade started when a Russian explorer found some sea otters and found that their fur was warm and soft and could be used for making clothing and things. That started the fur trade, which wiped them to extinction. But the problem now with the kelp forest is that the urchins have nothing eating them, and they eat all the kelp. So, if they eat all the kelp, then other like fish and things that feed on kelp don't have their main food source. So, if we reintroduce sea otters, the sea otters would keep the urchins in check. Well, the one problem with this is that they'd also take out the abalone, which are just starting to come back after divers took them out. My main question for this science project is why haven't the sea otters been reintroduced on the coast?
Sea otters used to live all over the California coast, but now only live down south in Monterey. There have been recent sightings in Humboldt and in Point Arena.
Why haven't the sea otters been reintroduced on the Mendocino coast?
Excellent question. I think one of the reasons is that the abalone hunters really like their sport. And they, as you know, the sea otters prey on abalone. And so because of the abalone hunters' need to get their abalone, they have not been very helpful in reintroducing sea otters back into the Mendocino coast. But again, maybe one of the reasons is that they just aren't. Their numbers are so low, their territory down in Big Sur, Monterey Bay, is enough for the few that are left, and they just haven't had a time to be reintroduced back into the Mendocino coast. Although there have been a few that have been spotted on the Mendocino coast. 2 years ago, one was spotted down around Point Arena. And many years ago, in the 1970s, I did see some up on the Lost Coast. So I think the juveniles leave the Farallon Islands, where there are some sea otters, and they travel looking for places when they're young where they can establish their colonies. But in some cases, they haven't been welcomed in because some of the abalone hunters have not been very helpful trying to keep them here.
But do you think a reason could be they haven't been driving on the Mendocino coast for so long?
That's possibly it. They've maybe forgotten about their good places to hide here on the Mendocino coast. Part of it is that there's sea change going on, and when they removed, as you said in your introduction, a lot of the sea urchins moved in, and there's a big change in the ocean too in terms of acidification. I was just at a meeting in Sacramento where the Ocean Protection Council is doing what it can to try to drive the agenda of changing the ocean acidification by reintroducing seagrasses and kelp into places where they think that will help change the pH balance. Do you understand about the pH balance in the ocean? Because as the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, it makes the water more acidic. And you know, as things get more acidic, they're more bitter, like a lemon is very acidic. And so the animals that are living in the ocean and the plants have evolved over the millennia to adapt to a certain pH level in the ocean. Right now, with the change in the pH level becoming more acidic, many of the animals and the plants are having to go through stressful times because it's just a big change that's happening in the ocean. I think that's why some of the plants and animals are adapting differently as quickly as they can, but maybe the sea otters can't adapt fast enough to what's going on in our ocean because, as you've mentioned, the kelp situation seems to be pretty dire right now. There's a big kelp die-off, and the urchins are taking over.
What do you think happened to the sea otters?
To the sea otters, they were harvested for hats in Russia in the 18th century. I think that's what happened to them, right?
And the effect is like...
Well, it's a big effect. You know, when you take out the apex predator, as they're called,
they weren't the apex predator.
They weren't.
The great whites. They were a predator.
They are at the top of the food chain.
Apex predator, but the great whites were.
Okay, the great whites probably did eat some sea otters and some seals, but in the intertidal, where the coves are, where the abalone and the urchins are, you don't see too many great white sharks. What you see are the sea otters that have kept things in balance.
And the sea lions and the harbor seals.
Correct. But eating urchins, not much eats urchins besides sea stars, sunflower stars,
which melted away.
And a recent check of the offshore conditions by one of the members of Reef Check California showed that there are only 3 sea stars that she's seen, sunflower stars, excuse me, and 2 of them were in Oregon all last year. So many of them are gone, and those are the ones that eat the sea urchins.
Yeah.
What else do you have?
Would you think would have an effect on the environment outside of the ocean on land?
If sea otters were reintroduced? That's another excellent question. I'm not quite sure.
I think the salmon might be more healthy.
It's possible.
And that could also change.
I hadn't thought about that, but maybe.
Okay, why do you think sea otters haven't been reintroduced yet on the coast?
That's a really good question. I think part of it right now, 2018, is because we don't have a lot of kelp. And so they definitely like to use the kelp as like a place to anchor onto.
I never thought of that.
Exactly. So they, like when they have their babies, they will tie, the baby to the kelp.
Yeah.
They'll hang onto the kelp while they're eating.
So they don't
have that kind of protection of the kelp. Like if I was a sea otter and I lived up here, I might be worried about orca eating me or a shark getting me if I was just hanging out eating urchin and there's not very much kelp. So that's what I think.
Why do you think the lice disease for the sea stars, why do you think it wiped out so many?
That's a really good question too. I think some of the scientists are really perplexed by that. All I could think, because it usually hits their population every 7 or 8, 9 years, and in the past it's only been like a small area. So all I can think about is that a lot of maybe the warming water, ocean temperatures, that maybe that had a lot to do with it. And maybe there was a pretty bad algal bloom in 2011, so maybe the combination of those two did something pretty drastic to them. But what I can say, because I've typholed pretty much for the last 20 years, and since the sea star wasting disease, it seems like the bat stars did okay. The ones I didn't see as much of are the ochre sea stars, and I have not seen a sunflower sea star probably in 6, 7, 8 years, and those are the ones with all the legs.
Yeah,
so I don't know if they went down deeper or if they got impacted by the stars.
What I heard was they melted away.
Exactly, so that could be it. And those two are they have a lot of 2 feet, and they're pretty good at, surrounding a creature and eating it, whereas the bat stars don't have tons of 2 feet like the other ones. So that could be why, too, that we're
But the
losing
sea stars are coming back.
Exactly. When I went type pulling the last couple months, I've seen a lot more.
Type pulling maybe last year.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So I think it's better than it was. There was definitely a few years in there that I did not see any of the ochre stars. When I did, they were literally melting away. It was pretty creepy.
Papa, is it okay if it's...
You can't see that.
It's okay.
It's probably still
It's
filming.
fine.
Yeah. What else?
Yes. Camera. Action. On.
Why haven't sea otters been reintroduced on the coast?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, I think there's a number of reasons why they haven't been reintroduced. I think that there's a group of people, the fishermen, people that like to fish for abalone and urchins, that don't want to see the urchins compete, have the sea otters competing with them, right?
Yeah.
So, what are the main foods that the otters eat?
Urchins and abalone.
Yeah, those are two big, and shellfish. They like crabs too.
Clams.
Yeah. So there's all those things that the otters would come in and they would eat quite a bit of the resource.
And that means less tourist attraction, less money, you know.
Maybe, but a lot of people go to Monterey to see the otters, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a bad thing. The otter is a keystone species.
Yes,
you know?
we know that.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
Well, it means they're very important to the food web.
Exactly. And so all the animals would benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just not us that maybe we need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
So I think that it would be a good idea to bring them back. Okay.
Why do you think the sea stars, why do you think that disease wiped out all of the sea stars?
Oh, that's another good question. Yeah. So it's probably a variety of factors. I mean, nobody's for sure on why they were wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming back now, but it was a virus that started it, right? Okay. And I think it was...
They get this virus like once in every 8 years.
Okay.
It was in 2013.
Right.
But this time it wiped out all along the coast.
That's right. Yeah, this time it was really bad.
Yeah.
But also this time there was an increase in the water temperature. And just like other animals, like us and other organisms, when you put a lot of stress on them, they can get disease. And I think that was part of the picture because the water temperatures off the coastline were the highest ever recorded. And so that put a lot of stress on these marine organisms. And the starfish were one of the indicators showing us that things aren't right in the ocean right now.
Okay, no more really big weird words. Some fun facts on sea otters by Ravel.
Okay, what do you got?
Sea otters have 1 million hairs per square inch.
I ought to get some of that.
That would be a very bad idea.
Why?
Because it would start up the fur trade again and it would kill a sea otter.
Well, luckily there's none around here, so they don't have to worry about me, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to go to like the Monterey or something. Do you really want to drive 5 hours just to get a new hat?
It would keep my head warm.
Yes, but you can get other hats.
This one works fine. You're right. I don't need that. But
Yeah,
what about
that'd
putting
be
them off coast?
pretty.
Wouldn't it be nice to see
It
them?
would look to be nice if you just went bald because it would look much better that way.
All the way bald?
Yeah, that would look much
Then
better.
I would have to get an otter pelt hat.
No, you wouldn't. You would just have to get a hat.
Well, that would work too. So did you know that there's 2 different species of otters?
Yes, northern sea otters and California sea otters.
And what's the difference? One lives in the north, the other one lives in the south. But something else too.
Yeah, there is. The northern eats fish.
That's
And
right.
the southern don't.
Yep, that's right. And what wiped them out in the first place? Why are they even separated into 2?
Fur trade.
Yeah, they bopped them on the head and made pelts and hats out of them.
Yeah, it started with this Russian explorer in
Yeah.
1741.
And where's our local Russian explorer outpost? You know where that is?
No.
Fort Ross, right down here.
Really?
Yeah, it's really close. So they came in and they wiped them all out, and they thought they were all gone. And then I think in 1936 or right around there,
Yes.
they found a small raft of them off the coast of Monterey.
1935, maybe, I'm not sure.
And then what? And then so they found a small population that they didn't bop over the heads.
Back in 50, I think.
Yeah. And then what happened to that population?
It increased.
Yeah, they made it.
Yeah, because fun
That's right. Do amoebas?
Yeah, I think they
They do.
probably
They
have
got
to,
to,
yeah.
because how else would there be amoebas, right?
Yeah.
So that small population, they made a marine sanctuary right there, and that's how the Monterey Bay Sanctuary started. They saw those otters, they said, let's make this a sanctuary, and then slowly those populations grew and they outspilled just like a marine protected area, okay, like the ones up our coastline here. Those populations expanded and expanded, and that population goes all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge, and now it goes all the way down to Point Conception down by Santa Barbara. So it's expanding its reaches, and every now and then they say that they see one up here, but for whatever reason they don't last.
Sometime like 2016, I think, maybe, when a few were spotted in
Humboldt, and then there's been a couple in Elk as well.
Elk, really?
Yeah. Yep. So they're expanding the range, and now, hopefully they'll get established, because as we said, a keystone species is important, right?
Excellent.
Do you think whales, seals, or sea lions have any impact on the forest?
Interesting. I think for them, seals and sea lions, I think they use it mostly for shelter and protection. And I think the whales, interestingly enough, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine it'd be a little bit tricky for whales to maneuver through. So what we noticed, Sarah, myself, and my boss, and a couple other people went out on a boat, I guess a couple months ago, and we dropped down, NOIA Center's got an underwater camera, we dropped it down off Casper Beach just to see what the kelp looks like there. And interestingly enough, we had a gray whale photobomb us, and that it came in and was feeding. So I wonder if we'll see more of the gray whales feeding more, because there's not so much kelp and they can hang out and not get caught up in it.
This question is kind of, so because there's no kelp, or not much, some fish that use the kelp for shelter don't have that much shelter anymore.
It's true.
Has there been an increase in orcas or population because of this?
That's a good question to ask too. What I do know of is that the orcas that would come through are the transient ones, and they cruise through for sure. In fact, I think there was a pod seen in December that I don't think anybody had ever seen before, as far as being able to get a photograph and ID it. So that might bring the orcas in. And in one of my classes that I spoke to in NOIA Center, one of the boys in the class thought that we would see more sharks, because sharks don't like the kelp. And so with the kelp gone,
And also,
they might come in.
they're what they feed on. Hey, I did the kelp. It's harder for them.
Exactly. So yeah, we might see a different, different kinds of animals end up being here because the kelp is missing for right now. Good question. So yeah, so I think the orcas will move through. We might see more of them, and then as far as the sharks go, that I don't know. We'll have to see if we could find out from people that go out on the ocean and fish and see if they see more of them.
After filming this video and the interviews, I have come to the conclusion that this is not the best time to reintroduce sea otters on the coast. Though later, after we have maybe removed some sea urchins, it might be a good time. Sea otters need kelps, so when they are eating urchins, they do not float away. I have made a blog about all the reasons why the urchins have been taking over the kelp forest and how we can help our kelp forest right now. Please check it out at seaurchinremoval.blogspot.com.